Yeah, so shout out to Fat Girl Sarah and Mark the Hustler for letting me share their stories as a transformation versus change story. Because most people change but never transform. See, change is doing something different, right? We're constantly changing. Transformation, on the other hand, is changing your entire life. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about cutting off our old life, new beginnings, transformation, and growth. Let's go. New paradigm shift. The world is going through a paradigm shift right now. And those who don't get involved and stay involved will not evolve. You know what I'm talking about? All right, change is inevitable. Transformation is a conscious choice. So, learning can be boring. To cut off the old life and make life better for them, the people around them, their children, and their children's children. They want to leave a legacy, build a legacy, and leave a legacy and generational wealth, right? That true love, not just saying I love you, but showing it in a more profound way. Let's start doing what we know we're supposed to do. Yes, it's called accountability, right? You're not just responsible for your life and your family members. You should be holding yourself accountable, doing what you know it is that you're supposed to do, even when no one is around, right? Now, let me give you a story. We know what stories do. They do more than just entertain and get people's attention. What they do is they give a person a better view of how they can take the challenges in the story and pertain them and use them for their own life and their own good, right? So let's go. You got Mark and Sarah. Mark lived in New York, right? He was tired of his life in New York. So he packed his bags and moved to LA. When he moved to LA, he moved there with one of his cousins that was getting money. So Mark started getting money and he started loving his life in LA, right? We'll let him live his life right now. Let's move along to Sarah. So Sarah was overweight. She was about 300 pounds, right? She was living an unhealthy lifestyle in a similar fashion towards Mark, but she was dealing with critical health conditions, right? Not only that, Mark was single guy with no children. Sarah, on the other hand, had a spouse and a child. So she was ready for dramatic change, right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about cutting the old life completely off, transformation, new beginnings, right? Growth. So you can also say a worthy, worthwhile goal, because what Sarah had was a worthy goal. What Mark had was just a goal, right? Now, Sarah, on the other hand, said she's going to sacrifice everything that isn't in alignment with her being her greatest version. So she sacrificed the food that she loved. You know, people are emotionally attached to food. She sacrificed her environment, the same as Mark did. He left his environment. She sacrificed her environment, right? Her family. She sacrificed her job that she was very comfortable at. You know, she got out of her comfort zone because those things weren't in alignment with the new person she wanted to become. So what Sarah did was to make a long story short, she sacrificed the things that she loved but didn't necessarily love her. And she changed her entire life. She started to meditate. She started to do qigong. She started to do breath work. She started to regulate her nervous system, right? Because it was running wild, right? She stopped eating the food she was eating, hanging with the people she was hanging with. She stopped doing the things that she was doing for years and years that got her in the place that she ended up in, right? She had to change her personality in order to create a new reality, right? She worked from the inside out. She started to recreate her belief system, her mindset, and her self-image, right? When she looked in the mirror, she no longer seen herself as a 300-pound woman. She seen herself because she stopped looking at the external and she started looking in the internal. She knew she was a loving and caring person, and she knew she was intelligent, and she knew she had more. She was capable of more. She had more potential, and she knew this from the inside out. So she went internally to find herself. She meditated. She visualized herself being this slim, thick woman and working as an entrepreneur from home to spend more time with her family, right? And eating healthy food, right? Drinking smoothies and juicing, right? She became the person that she wanted to become by emotionally internalizing who she wanted to become, right? She transformed like the butterfly. She used to be the caterpillar. She sacrificed things. During that stage, she was in her cocoon. And now she's a beautiful butterfly and she can fly. Transformation. On the other hand, Mark is in LA, but now he's beginning to be unhappy the same way he was when he was in New York. Why? Because he only changed his environment. He started getting money. He got a new car. He got a new house. He got some couple girls, but he never changed internally. So as he looked in the mirror and he knew he looked fly, on the inside he was really hurt. He was still walking around with past trauma from New York, right? He never changed internally. He only changed externally, right? So eventually those problems weren't really gone. They were just hiding, like most problems do. They were just hiding, right? And they popped back up because he never sat down. He never sat down with himself to know himself. So he never really knew who he was. Compared to Sarah, when she was meditating and stuff, and she continued to do it for 30 days straight, like she did, she started hearing voices from her higher self, right? So with that type of mind, you start not only seeing the dots, but you start connecting the dots, right? So she started talking to herself, her higher self. Mark, on the other hand, never got in contact with his higher self. He would ignore his higher self because he was distracted by the flashy things, the girls, the cars, and the rings, the ching chings and the bling blings. But he really wasn't happy. He was always high, but he wasn't happy. He was, how do I like to say this? Um, so she wanted permanent happiness. She was looking for permanent happiness. He was looking for temporary fun. Right? He was looking for temporary fun because he was moving off of mental activity, which is the subconscious mind. So bad habits, old, not necessarily bad habits, but old habits, the subconscious mind, right? So he was still in the subconscious mind dealing with old habits, right? Old wants and needs. When Sarah, she was dealing with her conscious mind because for most of us, in order to sit down and meditate and do qigong and not eat the food that you was eating forever and stop drinking and smoking and things like that, you gotta be in your conscious mind, your thinking mind. Mark never got to experience that new lifestyle because he was so caught up in his old lifestyle. And he had a goal to do better, but it wasn't specific. So he had no destination. And you know what they say, a person without a goal is lost. So Mark was lost. He didn't have a worthy goal. He had no destination. His destination was LA, but it wasn't a worthy goal. Because now he's in LA, then what? That's why they say your goal can't be just to move or get a car. You get the car, then what? Your goal's over. Her goal was to change as an entire being. That was her goal. So a lot of things come with that. If his goal is just a car, he just got a car. Move to LA, he just moved to LA. Her goal was, that'd be different if his goal was to move to LA and get into movies or get a car and start a car business. But that wasn't his goal. His goal was just to get the car. He got it. It was to get the chains and the cars and he got it. It was to get the girls and he got it. No real growth involved. Her goal was to change the entire, right? Whole new lifestyle. And with that whole new lifestyle came a whole new lifestyle. Yeah, he got a whole new lifestyle too, because yeah, he did. But you see the difference between their new lifestyles? You get it? So you got to have a worthy, worthwhile goal, right? Something. Sarah was, see, Mark wasn't necessarily scared to move to LA, but Sarah was scared. She was scared to lose that weight, right? Because you got to understand, some people, even though they feel unhealthy with the weight, they feel unhealthy losing the weight, right? Because their mind's going to play tricks on them to make them think that they're doing something unhealthy, losing weight so fast. I'm losing weight too fast. She was fasting and stuff. She was scared. Some people don't really understand that. So they feel like they're starving, right? But they're disciplined enough to follow their command. They had a command to do it and they followed it. She was disciplined. And as you heard today, a goal is different from a worthy goal, right? Change is different from transformation. So turn off your old life like it's a switch. Simple, not easy. So get ready for the drama because transformation, by definition, is thorough and dramatic. Transformation and growth. Do it for your family, do it for your friends, do it for your children and their children to come. So the moral to the story is this. Mark never found out who he truly was. He was just operating off of a mental program. You can call it a paradigm. It's a mental program situated in the subconscious mind that runs a person's life 95% of the day. Because according to neuroscience, we are only conscious 5% of the day. 95% of the day, we're running on autopilot. So Mark never consciously figured out who he was, right? The great saying, know thyself. He never went down that path or that road because he never created a goal that was worthy enough to even connect to that path. Anything can happen in the world of infinite possibility, right? On this plane we call Earth, this mental reality. So Mark never figured out himself, right? Sarah, on the other hand, obtained the same things Mark attained, right? The cars, the clothes, the money, the house, most things that most people want. Sarah also received those gifts because she became a person of value, a person that's so great that great things attracted and magnetized to who she became, right? So Mark had those physical material objects too, those flashy things, except he wasn't in love with who he was. He was only in love with those things. And if he lost those things, he became saddened, right? And if he didn't get more of those things, he also became saddened. So he was always saddened, right? Because if he started losing those things, he became very miserable. And if he didn't get more of those things, he became miserable. So it was a game of teeter-totter, right? He wasn't taking control of the principle of rhythm. When, right, you have a pendulum, right? Rhythm. It goes the same way to the left that it goes to the right, right? Balance. And you have polarity. You have the good and the bad, right? The law of polarity. And when the pendulum is in the bad zone and it's coming down, if you master the art of rhythm, you can hop off of the teeter totter to say, and let it go to the bad. And then when it comes back down, going to the good, you can hop back on the ride for only the good experiences for the most of it, right? So he was always going up and down and going up and down and going up and down. Sarah, on the other hand, she learned how to jump off of the ride when it went up to the bad side, and then when it came back down to the good side, she would hop on and enjoy the ride. And when it come back to the back side, she'll hop back off and let the bad do what it do. When it come back down, she'll hop back on for the good part of the ride, right? Yeah, you got to understand universal laws. So Sarah not only maintained, because she also maintained those things, because something I might have forgot to identify was the fact that transformation is permanent. Healed himself internally. So he continued to deal with those past trauma, and he continued to live in the past, because every day he woke up doing the same things that he would do every day. So he kept living in the past, even though he thought it was the present, right? Sarah, on the other hand, started to live in the future. She didn't live, she lived in the future. That was her present, because she looked at herself as being something in the future, and she started being that in the present. So as he was living in the past, she started living in the future, right? So that's the difference, the moral to the story or whatnot. Transformation versus change. Transformation is permanent, change is temporary, right? To transform, a butterfly never goes back to the cocoon or the chrysalis. It really is. People call it a cocoon, but that's a moth. But that's another story. But the butterfly never goes back to being the caterpillar or whatnot. It stays a butterfly. It's always a new devil for every level. So it's new challenges, but you know how to handle them better because of your new mindset and state of mind. So even though Sarah came across new challenges, she knew how to deal with them, right? Mark didn't know how to deal with his, so he just did more drugs and spent more money and lost more money, and you know what I mean, and got more sadness, right? So, in conclusion to the story, there you go.